So just quickly, the reason why I'm here today is specifically because I was asked to come back and speak very, very directly about exporting to whoever it is you're looking for. And I noticed that doing my research on Riga, particularly on the exporting side, everyone mainly focuses on your close neighbors. Lithuania, I think, is currently your #1 export purchaser. And there's very many reasons why we tend to stay close to where we currently are. But that's not necessarily where your fortune lies. And I'm going to go through some examples today of how you can practically implement some strategies that's going to take you outside of your comfort zone and into a new level of revenue. So I'm basically saying you shouldn't listen to a word that I'm about to tell you. Don't accept anything that I'm saying as fact. What I would prefer you to do is to go out and use and test everything that I'm going to tell you today. Because it works for me, it won't necessarily work for you. But what I'm going to give you is the strategies and psychologies that do work, and then it's down to you to tweak, to understand, to tailor them specifically to the audience, to the target market that you're trying to reach. Now, there are many, many other people who will come up and will talk. These are some of the clients that I've worked with in the last 12 months. And they range from the traditional products and services through to consultancy, through to books, through to films, through to technology companies, through to people selling widgets, through to companies that sell very, very designer, exclusive, high-end clothing line, which we actually got featured in Vogue. Now, I don't say this to impress you. I tell you this to impress upon you that whatever you're currently doing, you can do much better. And that's what I'm going to try and give you. To give you an example, when Jeff was speaking a bit earlier about this celebrity, it's very much, you need to think about some of these people you are approaching exactly as that, as celebrities. Because in their field, they are the A-list celebrities. You might not recognize, but the chap in the middle is a gentleman called Jed York. Now, he owns the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco 49ers are an American football team. Current valuation is $2.7 billion. Not exactly small change, and yet I was able to sit down with him for an hour, and then when we actually started out to map out a couple of things that he could do with the company and with the specific products and service he was working on at that time. Now, that doesn't happen by chance. That doesn't happen by random meetings. That happens with a very, very structured way to get me, a nobody. I'm on my own as my own consultant. I have my team of consultants, but I'm not IBM. I'm not McKinsey. I'm not Deloitte. I'm not KPMG. I'm not some big manufacturing company. I've got no financial influence or leverage over him. Yet, he was willing to give me 1 hour of his time where we was able to develop a proposal together. If you could get in front of your key celebrity buyer, what could you actually do? What deal could you make? Because if you can't make that deal, frankly, all the stuff you're producing or the stuff you want to export, it's going nowhere. Okay? And you might as well just carry on selling it to your friends. Okay? I'm interested in how do you get in the room with the big guys. Okay? And there is nothing stopping you except how you apply a strategy. So, as I said, many of the challenges that we have is that we haven't got the networks in other countries, right? No one cares about what you're offering, what your service is. There's different cultures. You don't understand them technically. I remember the first time when I came to Riga, and they said to me, if you ask the audience a question, everyone's very reserved. You know, they won't answer you back. And I thought, if Jeff's hardly getting you to answer back, I'm not going to. And they said to me, well, we're a very reserved country. And I said, I'm from England. We invented reserved. You can't take that away from us. But I found out that was very true. Okay? Another thing, nobody has time for what you're talking to them about. Nobody has time. No, why should they care? And if you're not going to make me money in that brief window of opportunity, why should I sit and listen to you? And then we've got other things like language barriers. Very specific and detailed ways that I say something may be completely irrelevant to you or just go straight over your head. And one of the things we'll come on to is the physical distance. So I'm going to do something a bit controversial. We've got some people here from the UKTI who's going to be telling you some really good traditional ways of how to go approaching markets. I'm not really a traditional kind of guy, you can probably guess that. And the reason is because I get the results from doing a non-traditional approach. So I'm going to actually share with you, and this is the first time I've shared with this outside in a public forum, a couple of ways that you can do that and you can benefit from it. So we're going down this way. You've got a choice. You can just go for one traditional or the non-traditional. Personally, I would look at both and find out and test what works for you. Oops. Non-traditional. And the reason is that in a traditional sense, when you're looking to do any kind of exporting or selling or developing any kind of strategic relationships, everyone's trying to push you down a certain way. Yeah, have you ever felt that, whether you're being pushed into a funnel and said, oh no, you have to submit to this, you have to reply to this. This is the European Journal, for example, if you're submitting a bid for a proposal. And the whole system is designed to keep you within some narrow parameters. It's how a lot of people keep in jobs, okay? I'm a bit more think outside the box and how can we actually circumvent all that and just go straight to the top and get a deal, right? Why not? So this is how I'm thinking constantly from the beginning. I'm not thinking, okay, yep, fill out that and I get this back and then I have to do due diligence, and I'm trying to go, no, okay, how can I just go quickest way, shortest route to whoever is the decision maker who's going to sign on the line and say yes. So let me give you an example. One of the biggest problems that I see is what I like to describe as the value system. Now, right now, everyone is placing a value on everyone else based on where you are, okay? So let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being no value at all, okay? Worthless, not worth my time, wouldn't even cross the street, okay? Up to the 10, okay? This person is walking George Clooney, or who were the other ones we had shouted out? There were some weird ones, I haven't heard them for a while. Okay? Number 10 is the person, okay? 1 to 10. Now this one here, you would think, okay? So you've got a couple, a 33-year-old man, a 34-year-old woman, 2 young kids, both under 3. That's not easy. That's tough. They're on welfare support, which means they're supported by the state. They have no money of their own, technically, and they have a very large family. Now, I'm not going to ask you, because I already know what interaction is like with some of you guys, okay? But when I've asked this question in the past with other people and done online polls, because I like to test things out with anonymity where no one can really feedback, I say to them, between 1 and 10, what value would you place on these people? Would you spend your time to go out and talk with them and try and recruit them? And everyone usually says the average it comes out, actually, is about 4.5. It's way down here. Okay, interesting. What if I was to tell you it was the best export out of the UK is the young royal family? Now, if you ask that question again, what do you think that number on the value system goes up to? Yeah, usually 11, you're right. Everyone's thinking, God, yeah, if I could get 2 minutes with them, they would love this incredibly embroidered knitting scarf that I've created, okay? Well, what's changed, right? Something that Jeff was saying about is very, very true. When you look at celebrities, you took people in a different way, whatever that is. Now, the question is that they're the same people, they've got the same problems as you or I, they think the same, they still go to the toilet the same. But the interesting thing is that their perception of you is very different, okay? Their perception of you is one of these being held back by big security guards because there's so many of you, okay? Everyone's trying to get a piece of their time. Everyone thinks they've got the next big thing, that if they just stocked it, it would make everyone a millionaire, okay? And so we have to start to change this attitude a bit and have to start thinking a little bit more strategically in how we actually approach it. Because otherwise, we get into one of 3 different kind of relationships. The first one is that you're a position of equal. And this is where you really want to be, okay? You want to have this codependent relationship where you both give into the relationship. You both feed into it positively, and you both lift each other up. Correct? That's the kind of relationship you want. However, one way that you can go about this is not to be so open as that, but to actually present it in such a way that they think, oh, if I bring this person and take on their products or take on their services, then they're going to accelerate what I'm doing. That's key. Because if it goes the other way, you're in an abusive relationship where they will take, and every organization is built for one thing, to make more money. And what they will do is that they will make more money at your expense. This is an abusive relationship. It's an abuse of power, abuse of trust. You wouldn't be in that. If you were living with somebody, you would be wanting to leave that relationship, right? You wouldn't be thinking, I'll just stay in it, maybe it will get better. Okay, or maybe you would, but that's the different psychology. We haven't got time for that at the moment. I'll do some couples counseling later. So the one we want is the top one, where both people are mutually engaged in developing that one relationship. You get this right with your export strategy, your growth strategy, everything will change for you, guaranteed, without question. And this is the same knowledge and the same stuff that I give to big clients, okay? The only difference is that everyone then applies it. Those who don't, that's fine. So actually, how do we enter an international market? A lot of people will say, oh, I don't really have the contacts. I don't really know how to do it. Well, let's be really specific, okay? Let's really target individuals and in organizations, whoever it is, okay? Don't just shout out someone like Richard Branson, okay, because that's who everyone does, okay? But if you were thinking in your industry, in your market right now, if you could land one big signing deal with whoever it is, who is that person? I want to picture them in your head. What do they look like? Short, tall, fat, thin, male, female, young, old? And you have to start to actually empathize with them. So you have to actually really understand who they are as a person, how they talk, how they think, what they're doing, what their goals and aspirations are. This might sound a little disconnected with some of the stuff you're doing, but then it should do, because you wouldn't be sat here if you were already doing it. So to give you an example, how do A players talk to each other in the industry? In the UK in particular, I know that a lot of people are trying to export there. One of the main reasons is because everyone in the UK, US in particular, uses LinkedIn. Okay, so if you're going to have, if anyone is going to check you out, and they will straight away, they will check out your LinkedIn profile. If this looks poor, if you look as though you have no people you're connected with, if it looks unprofessional, you're already out of the game, okay? You've got one chance, gone. It's that quick, okay? So for example, you need a minimum of 500 connections. Just sign up anybody. Doesn't matter who they are. Who gives a fuck? Sorry, F-bomb, sorry. Okay, it doesn't matter. But you have to be at least in the game to play it. Next, Twitter is probably the single biggest social platform that every journalist uses instantly. And do you know why? They want to check out what your credibility is. So if you're approaching a celebrity, they will have a look at, is this person even worth engaging with me on Twitter? And by the way, for me, Twitter has been an incredibly powerful tool. And you'll probably hear a little bit later from someone else who uses social media in a similar way. And the reason is, partly is because I have 47,000 Twitter followers, okay? And that doesn't just naturally happen. That takes time, investment, and you have to work to build that up. But as soon as you get that, then people are thinking, wow, 47,000 people are following this people, there must be a reason why. And there's enough of a creation of doubt in their mind that they will then say, okay, yeah, send me something, engage with me, here's my email address. Surprisingly powerful. Very, very poorly used by the majority of people because they just push out stuff that they want to talk about, okay? That offers no value. So exactly as Jeff said, actually, and we didn't even see each other's presentations before this, reach out in their native language, okay? If you're trying to export to an English-speaking country, reach out with an English-speaking, with an English version of whatever it is you're trying to say. And I would not, if English isn't your first language, I would find someone who it is their first language, not some college kid who's learned it at school or something and was busy doing something else at the same time. I mean, actually, go and find these people. They're everywhere as freelancers and ask them to proofread it, whatever it is you're trying to say, whoever it is you're trying to approach for those few minutes of your time that's going to change the success of your business. Find that person and ask them to write or rewrite what you've already written. When we talk about UKTI, they're a fantastic introduction agency and get you with meetings with other people, but don't just be reliant on UKTI, British Expertise, or whoever else you might want to be using as an introductory service. Everything that you get out of this will be what you put into it. I try and find out who can introduce me at a high level and a high level and a high level. I keep thinking of it as like rungs on a ladder, okay? So this person can introduce you to that person can introduce me to that person, and you keep going up until you hit the person who can't say no, who doesn't have to go any higher to get permission to sign off on whatever it is you're trying to get them to buy. Go as high as you possibly can. If you're going to meet anybody who's asking you, can you submit a proposal? I would say that's the wrong person, because they can just turn around and say no. I would be going to the person above, probably 2 or 3 steps above that, who says, yeah, let's make it happen. That's the person you want. And remember, like I say, these people receive thousands of requests a day, and normally, you won't even be speaking directly to them. You'll be getting their personal assistant, their managers, the people who have been put in the way on purpose, like I said, the system, right? That process to try and distance you from actually getting to whoever it is you're trying to find. They're there for a specific reason, to stop the masses trying to get hold of them. Okay? So whatever it is you're going to do has to be that 1 step beyond, or maybe even 5 steps beyond. And my father used to work in Saudi Arabia when I was growing up, and he was there for 18 years. Never went out. And he would come back every 3 months, because that's how long leave he got. And I would have a week or 2 weeks with him, and then he'd go back. And he was over there during the 80s and 90s, during the massive construction period. And one of the things that he was doing constantly was having to negotiate with suppliers, with importers, with exporters, with the royal family. And even from when I was a little boy, even from when I was and I know this probably sounds a bit weird, but my dad gave me life lessons on how to negotiate with Saudi royals, but when I was 6, I remember being sat on the wall with my dad, cup of tea in a hand, and him constantly drilling into me this one phrase, and I want to give it to you. And he said to me, always remember, my son, what's in it for the other fella? And he kept saying this to me every time I saw him, over and over again, even up to his dying days. And he was still there saying, always remember, my son, what's in it for the other fella. Because when we start to go into a negotiation, the problem is that most people just think, I've got this really fantastic project, I've got this really fantastic business, I've got this really fantastic service. You'll love it, you'll make so much money out of it. And it's usually, you're back to that mob mentality. But what my dad was telling me, and it took me best part of 2 decades to fully understand it, and then probably another decade to actually be able to implement it, was then to think, well, how is it actually going to impact them in a very meaningful, psychological, and emotional way? Because that is the key thing that's going to keep them with you and not switching to somebody else. If they have that kind of connection with you on a deep level, they will only go with you, and they will turn down anyone else who gets put forward. Then you've got real power. Then you've got real bargaining power. Then that becomes something important. And this isn't just restrained to negotiation in sales or anything like that. Politicians, it's fantastic. What's in it for the other fellow? Give them what they think is massive, is significant. And what you ask in return, proportionally to them, is very small. So they'll just go, yeah, of course, yeah. So when I was talking to Jed York, or when I was talking to a gentleman who has I was on a Skype call with a gentleman who has a $500 million company. And I was on Skype to him for an hour. And I worked out that an hour of his time was approximately £15,000. I don't have £15,000 to spend on an hour's phone call, but he gave that to me for free. And it was all because I was giving him something of huge importance, huge significance, and all he had to give me was an hour of his time, which seems like a fair trade-off. That's how, if you start thinking in that level, that will instantly change what you're doing. And then how do we actually develop these relationships? So great, we're in the door, we've met them, we've started a dialogue, we've started engaging with them. What's next? Well, in the age of the internet and connectivity, our most valuable resource is time. And unfortunately, if you want to build up a strategic relationship, a profitable relationship with anybody, you have to invest time, you have to invest time, you have to invest your time. Okay? And when I say that, I don't mean dropping them an email every 2 minutes, okay? Or tweeting them on Twitter, or something else ridiculously pathetic. No one is interested. But, for example, when I came to Riga back in November, I took time and actually met up with the organizer. And I sat down with her, and we had a talk, we had a discussion, we started to put things forward. And since then, I've been in contact, and we've been backwards and forwards, and it's a case of investing physically, me being here as well, and taking time out of my time to see how I can support you. Then you develop a relationship. Most people think, oh, well, we'll just send someone over to the UK. We'll just send someone over to China. They're a massive, right? Let's send someone over to China. They'll buy it. They'll buy anything, right? And why would they? Okay? You got one person, probably doesn't know what they're doing, in the middle of China, and you just hope. Okay? Where you have real change is where you invest your time. And that actually means like even spending a week in the country, making contacts, giving things away, and supporting other people. And they'll be saying, well, who are you? How can we help you? What are you doing? That's really interesting. Let's go for that. So when I talk about get a guide who's a native, find out whoever that is, okay? And I can almost guarantee it's not someone you know currently, okay? Find them. It's easy to find, but you have to go outside of what you're doing currently and find that person. Alternatively, get a guide who's already native to the industry. Who is that person who's already a key player or knows who everyone is in it? That's really interesting. So one of the things I talk about is you can either go straight to the top, go after the big players. You have to be on your A game. If that's your strategy, man, that's hard. That's a tough one. It's achievable, it's doable, but it takes a long time to get to that kind of level because you have to be psychologically prepared. And most people who just go straight for the A level, they're not really at that stage yet. Because an A player has been dealing in multi-million-pound deals for 10 years minimum, generally speaking. Okay? They already know how to handle you so easily, and that's the problem. You need to be someone who they can't handle, who they're not used to. So instead, I like to use the strategy of grow your own credibility. And this is based on, for me, Dr. Robert Cialdini. Brilliant, brilliant author. Very, very smart. And he actually wrote the book on how do you psychologically influence someone. If you haven't got this book, if you've never heard of it, buy it as a translation, somehow get it into your brain. This is probably one of the most important books you can use for any sales, negotiation, advertising, marketing, or any kind of, you'd be surprised, any kind of political maneuvering you're trying to do. So this is how you can do it. Either go straight to the top, or the one which I prefer, is that you actually look at going in at a lower level. Start to create that credibility, that groundswell. And this might be in testimonials, it might be in small sales, it might be in online traffic. There are many, many, many multiples of this, but the idea is that once you get in small, you start, like I say, using that ladder, and you start moving up the scale. Keep asking for referrals, keep going up. Who else would be interested in this? Okay? Most people will adopt a growth strategy that is mainly like noughts and crosses. You ever played that game? You know, where it's just X's and zeros, and it's very, very basic, very, very simple. You know, your 5-year-old could probably do it in a heartbeat. But that's not what we're doing here, because if with an international strategic strategy, man, you have to be thinking on the long game. You have to be thinking of a 2-3 year strategy that's going to pay off and how you actually develop that. Because exactly as Jeff was saying earlier, you aren't just competing against everyone else in this room, you're competing against everyone else in Europe and in the wider world, because it's too easy now not to, okay? And if the money is there, everyone will make it happen, okay? Regardless of how good your product is or your service, it almost doesn't matter. So you have to be able to chunk up to get to that right person. So this is a guy called Morten Lund, and massive investor in companies. He was one of the original investors in Skype, made millions, or made hundreds of millions, lost hundreds of millions, millions again. And one of the things, we were sitting down having dinner, and one of the things he says, which is very, very true, is that people would rather be king than rich. And the problem is with that, is that everyone would like to be right. Everyone was like, no, we're not going to do that. This is the right way to do it. Okay? Or, no, they're not going to take that much profit. Or we can't do that kind of size order. Okay? Because I want to retain my little empire. Okay? The first rule of exporting is that your empire, your little business, if you want it to grow, then you have to instantly let go of everything you think you've got. Obviously, retain things like your brand, your position, how you think, and your strategy. But you have to adapt constantly. And that might mean giving more than you expect, but it means if you can look at where you're going to make it up later and how you're going to make it up, it's a risk and return. And it's worth that. So here's a quick way of when you actually sat down and negotiating with people. Instantly thinking, is this relationship going to be mutually beneficial? Are they, going to just abuse me? Are they going to just take everything that I've got and I get nothing? Can I maintain my profit margins? Critical. So many people kind of forget that cash is king, okay? You need to have that cash flow where it's not eroding your margins to such an extent that you can't maintain your business. And then you get desperate, and then you start looking for other people who you can sell to, and you become into this negative spiral. As I say, if you want to look at what's sustainable, then perhaps consider putting timescales on it, or exclusivity agreements that end. So many people don't even think about doing this. And when you're looking at the contracts, this is where it can kill you, in the small print. Okay? If you haven't got a good lawyer, find one very, very quickly. And overall, think about how do opportunities fit in with what your current growth strategy is. Two things will happen there. So I assume everyone basically has a growth strategy on what they're trying to achieve. Everyone is trying to think, if I do this, this, and this, it will lead us to this level of growth, correct? Over a period of maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 years. So when these other opportunities come up, how does that fit? How does that align with what I'm currently doing? Sometimes it will fit and you think, brilliant. But sometimes the market will actually tell you, no. Lithuania is fine. Germany loves you. Okay? The States is crying out for you guys, but China hates you. Okay? Quickly adapt. Whatever your strategy and business model is, start to look for patterns. And the way to look for patterns is to measure everything. Okay? One of the things that I like to pride myself on with companies is that I'm good at metrics. So I'm good at analyzing, okay, where are we actually making money? Where's our actual return? What's our actual ROI on specific investments? Rather than, oh, let's just try doing something different. Okay, got that gut feel, that I've got a good feeling about this. So, a couple of ideas, and I think I said that I'd leave these slides with you so you can keep them afterwards as well. But look at actually how can you start with a small minimum order. Get your foot in the door, start very, very small. And so they don't even notice that they're taking on an export order. Most people just go in and try and just do a big sale straight away. Doesn't work. Very, very rarely does it work unless you have significant influence within the marketplace already and everyone's already crying out for you. So instead, just start with something small, get your foot in the door, and once you start getting that churn, things start growing. Now also, have agreed targets, and actually then start to market whatever they're selling. Sorry. When they're actually selling your product, help them by selling it for them. This might almost sound counterintuitive, because what a lot of people do is that They export something, and they say, great, okay, they're going to market that, they're going to make me loads of money. Right, what about these guys over here? And you start just chasing. These kind of buyers, they want to work with people who are going to sell you, so you're going to sell your own stock just through them. And then you're a pleasure to work with. You're outstanding. God, yeah, let's get more of that person on. Let's place a bigger order. Let's increase the timescales. Let's put bigger targets on it. But most people will just say, yep, done. Okay, gone. Right, where's next? Because that's how we're designed to function with this. Ironically, this might seem quite small, but tell them how great they are publicly. Okay? If you have a Twitter account, if you can put a press release out, tell them, put in the press that they are fantastic. They're the best person we've ever worked with in our exporting business. They're the best person in Riga that we've ever had come along, and they just know everything about us and they want to do everything with us. Okay? Give them the glory. Don't try and be, oh, we've just made another big sale with X, Y, and Z company. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And remember, you're just trying to make them look good. And then finally, just keep following up, growing it incrementally each time. 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%. Okay? And you will soon start to see they become dependent on you. Then you have a new dynamic. So I'd like to leave you with some words then. So the only thing I would say is with everything you do, there's no guarantee of success. Nice, cheery way to finish on it. But plan as though luck is against you. And when luck starts to come your way and the deals start to come in, execute as though luck is with you. And very, very quickly, you'll find your orders to grow. I want to thank you. Feel free to come up and talk to me. I think we're going to be outside. I'll happily answer any questions or give you any short advice that I can, or follow up with me afterwards. Thank you.